As lockdown eases, people are spending more time outside, but office blocks remain almost empty. COVID-19 has forced us to experiment with new ways of doing business, a change that's well overdue, says businessman Andrew Barnes.
I think the way we work today, even before COVID-19, it isn't fit for purpose. It hasn't been fit for purpose for a while. We haven't changed, the 9-to-5, 5-day week since broadly the 1920s. All the surveys, even pre-COVID, indicated that people were anxious to try and find a different way of working. All COVID-19 will now do, I think, is accelerate that process.
In New Zealand, Barnes' estate planning services company, Perpetual Guardian, was quickly able to adapt to the coronavirus challenge. In 2018, he decided to trial a 4-day working week after reading an article about how poor productivity was in a typical 5-day week in the UK and Canada.
We found our stress levels dropped about 15%. Our engagement scores, that's enthusiasm, enrichment, empowerment, they all went up about 40%. But critically, productivity went up as well. So in fact, we were delivering the same amount of productivity in the 4 days as we were in 5. And in fact, more people said they were better able to do their work working 4 days rather than 5. And we call this the 100-80-100 rule, which is 100% of your pay, 80% of your time, provided we get 100% productivity.
So how did the changes that you implemented before the virus help during lockdown in New Zealand?
Well, I think the key problem that people had when they sent their staff home was you had to have trust. You had to trust your employees that they would work. I know of some companies that made their staff keep Zoom on all day so that they could be seeing whether their workers were working. And at the same time, you had to be able to measure productivity. Now, one of the problems historically has been, especially in service industries, is we have no idea how to measure productivity. The benefit we had is that as part of the process of moving to 4-day week, we had worked out what productivity was. We'd asked our staff to tell us how we should measure them. We'd verified that. And we built up this incredible level of trust. So for us, shifting to home working really was no issue at all. We have seen absolutely no change in our company performance through the lockdown.
In the UK, a group of cross-party politicians is now urging the government to explore the economic benefits of a 4-day week as a way to recover from the COVID-19 crisis. And the Perpetual story has run in over 80 countries. With so many requests from media, businesses, academics and politicians, Andrew and his partner Charlotte Lockhart set up the 4-day week global. And the pandemic has seen another wave of requests for guidance. Do you think COVID's now going to hasten more change, such as a 4-day work week, in business?
People say to me, what is the biggest obstacle for business doing that? And I would always say fear. Management were fearful of doing something that was significantly different, or in their perception, is significantly different. And they also feared being able to trust their staff and be able to measure their productivity. So now that we've done that, we've taken that leap of faith, what was forced on us, then how do we actually find a new way of working that says, okay, you know what, let's be a lot more flexible.
Now, how do you operate within New Zealand law in terms of the contracts? How does that work?
There are some problems with the fact that in New Zealand, and as is in a lot of places around the world, our employment contracts are based upon a place and times and days of work. So what we did is we actually haven't changed our staff contracts. We have an opt-in process, so people opt in on an annual basis to the productivity. We call it the productivity week because it is a focus on productivity. If you can be more productive, you can have time off. And so we have an opt-in contract that sits alongside your employment contract.
The 4-day week encouraged a more flexible, adaptable way of working, and the pandemic has shown companies that business can continue outside an expensive centralised office. Lockhart says this new way of working doesn't need more legislation, but governments do need to play a role.
So my view is that the sort of things that we want government to be doing is making business accountable to the way that they measure their outcomes, the way that they measure and report what they do. So, for example, in the UK, businesses have to report on their gender and diversity statistics. Well, what if we had to report on our employee well-being statistics? What if we had to report on our environmental impact? And all of the things that reducing the number of hours that we work, all the benefits, all the side benefits that if companies had to report on it, then they would look for mechanisms to give them those things to improve their reporting structure.
What changes do you hope that the world might take on board? I mean, in business, but maybe elsewhere as well after this pandemic?
So I am really hopeful that we will come out of this actually absolutely rethinking the way we work. I hope and pray that a 4-day week will be part of that, because it addresses a lot of these key issues, around equality in the workplace, gender pay. It addresses the bigger pandemic, arguably, in the world, is mental health. 1 in 4 or 1 in 5 of your workforce at any point in time have a stress or a mental health issue. And that is often occasioned by, things like work, the amount of time you're spending on commute and so on. So I am hopeful that from this, we will actually rethink. There are good things that have come out of the lockdowns. The tragedy will be if all we do is go back and do exactly the same thing as we did before.
It's finished. But don't worry, we've got a lot more Razor stories for you. All you need to do is like, comment and subscribe and hit the bell button below for notifications. We'll see you next time.